think I caught. I think I'm back on the train. I think I'm back on the train. That's my grow light. Check out my plants. Look at the tomatoes. My own little space capsule here. Here in outer space. Trying to find answers for us. So what this world wants me to say, this world, when I say this world, I want to clarify from now on. I'll clarify it later, obviously. But when I say this world, I mean the civilization that we have collectively agreed is reality. Not nature, not the universe, not God, not creation, not truth. Reality is an imposition. And day in and day out, it becomes more obvious that our duty, my duty to you, is to find a way to lose it. Lose more and more of it every day. It's a duty to me, really. Because what I was saying is, I shine in catastrophe. There's something I can't explain in words, won't paint the image unless you've been to this place. But if you've ever seen death, when I say seen death, I don't mean seen somebody die or seen somebody dead. I mean been at the crossroads. Catastrophe, major accident, someone else's grief, trauma, witness someone else dying. If you've ever been to these places, I don't know what happens to other people. I'm becoming increasingly aware of that, but there's a place that there's something that happens for me, through me, or to me. But it's as if time stops all around me, completely. And I don't know how to explain it, but the color and the atmosphere and air, everything is different. The air is still, the atmosphere is, it's more saturated and more distant. I don't know, it's almost as if I take over a bubble in time and space, and everything inside of that space is within my control, but not literally. It's as if I have a perfect grasp on everything. I can access everything that I'm feeling, that I've known, that's been known. It's being in that space and saying, this is what's around, this is what is happening, this is who I am, this is where I'm coming from, this is the end goal. Everything that I just mentioned, this is how all of that gets us there. And no hesitation, that time and space, just step up, get it done. Whatever needs to happen, give directions, take action, whatever it is, just, kind of like that mom picking up the car because it's on her baby thing, except it's more expansive than that. It's understanding my place in everything, and, well, not everything, but in that situation, and knowing where that situation needs to go and getting it there perfectly, flawlessly. And so my point is there one? There's one. That's not going to be found here. My point in this ramble, is this world wants me to say that my best quality is reacting at times of extreme pressure or peril or catastrophe. That's why I'm here, and that's it's an irresponsible, it's a wildly irresponsible stance, belief, and attribute to embrace wholeheartedly as the forefront of my existence. And first of all, it sort of expects it, which at some point will manifest it, and also it's very, very limited in scope and dimension. And at what point in life what size of a catastrophe will give my life meaning, if that's the case? At what age, at what point, at what place do I say, my time to access that has gone? And what's a catastrophe? I mean, we're living in a catastrophe, so, is that really my gift? I'm very obviously not applying myself right now, not outwardly. So, taking that on as an identity is reckless and self-destructive. It just is. It is. And not just for me, for anyone. But as I mentioned previously, finding absolute truth in one place dictates that its polar opposite is also true in its own proportions. I don't remember if it's the contrapositive that ends up being that. It's the inverse, converse, and contrapositive to the inverse, right? And then the converse, and then the contrapositive. Hey, you get what I'm saying, or stay tuned or leave, whatever. But no, no. It's, do you? But we're going somewhere. We're going somewhere here. Somewhere big. Somewhere beautiful. So if having this ability, this skill, this connection, talent, being good in this situation is a skill that I've discovered, and I've discovered this by testing my boundaries, my limits, right? I'm afraid of power, and I guess being afraid of power, the best way to temper oneself to it is to push limits and really see, what am I afraid of? What am I made of, right? I'm not sure that was the conscious train of thought when I was wrecking my civilized life, but point taken. So, if we take that as absolute truth, which I do, for me, that is a part of me that I do not deny, I do not absorb, I do not mimic, adapt. So different ways of knowing oneself, right? I've defined myself by my boundaries. And so what that does is it leaves this big middle area totally undefined. And so if we look at ourselves as creators, the point of creation, the source of creation doesn't have a limit. But I believe it does have a direction. And to a degree, I believe we all choose how far and what direction we want to go, but I think ultimately, we can pop in and out of different cabins on the train, but we can jump off the train. The train's going in one direction, so we set those boundaries ourselves, and if we don't, then whatever the ultimate force is, whether you believe it's society, the law, government, God, the universe, love, aliens, a council, federation, whatever you believe, the ultimate decider, conductor, creator, wherever this train is going, that's where it's going to go. No matter who we are, so why not be, going too far in that direction. So the point of creation flows, and we set those boundaries, or ideally we do, in setting them for ourselves, we inadvertently set them for others. And where we set those boundaries matters. And I got to know myself in worst case scenario because I was called very early in life to address some tough situations, and did my best, and it was pretty good for a while. And so we have those limits, and I'm not proud. I'm okay with them. I don't think those limits are something to be proud of, because we travel down the roads that no one needs to go to discover them. But when we find them, they're worth everything. They become our salvation. And so there's this boundary that I've built. It's become the last place that I know myself. And so I've gotten to a point where I believed that I needed new boundaries to test. And in a way I do. But I've been testing the creation, the creation. I've been testing the boundaries of my best in a bad situation. The limits of my goodness. And I did that in tough situations that I'll bring up later. And I did that by trying to be what I thought was the best, most loving, giving, kind, selfless person that I could imagine. And those boundaries are much messier and harder to clean up. I'm not giving anybody suggestions on how to find yourself, or whether or not you even want to be honest. But the things that feel good are harder to let go. And can become muddier to define a limit. And so now it's a game of pulling back and allowing creation to flow, and realizing that I no longer need boundaries. I no longer need imposed boundaries. And I say this in many ways. I don't need to be policed. And I don't. I know myself. I've been through the legal system. I'll tell you my war stories later. I don't know every bad situation that could happen, but I know my character in bad situations, and if the opposite is entirely true, then that means that I have a lot of good to create, because if I can be great in a catastrophe, then that means that I can create great things that aren't catastrophic. And so figuring out what that means and how it applies to where we all meet, where we all decide to meet, is the next stage of the game. Right? So if I paint this picture for you, it's like I create this boundary, right? Just create this boundary with whatever stages you want to say, you know. Anger, aggression, sex. Say here, create these boundaries with outward expression, emotionality, self-indulgence, food, substances, whatever. Create these boundaries, right? And, you know, we go through all these trials and It's pain to figure out that these are the things that kill us and very hard to reanimate in ways that are very hard to reanimate from. And so we have these boundaries, right? What's the weird Jesus thing? The Buddha, what, I don't know what. These hands things, right? So create these boundaries and imagine that the point of creation is like right there in the middle, right? So I'm looking at you right here, and the point of creation is right there in the middle. And it can go out in all directions, right? Like you can create all this destruction, this indulgence, this anger, this rage. You can spread it out there because it's creation is happened. It flows through us, right? You can do it. So create these boundaries. And now, if we create boundaries on love and whatever, right? Create love, creation, acceptance, whatever. And the energy is bound inside of a circle. What are you going to do? How you can create, how you can pan out. So you can open it and focus it, right? Now, the situation here becomes that this needs to rotate and or. That realistically, ideally, it would not be there, and all of creation would flow freely in a balance, in a harmony. It's if we don't get involved, animals generally don't go extinct because of another animal's actions. They're self-regulating systems. They find a balance and they stay. That's how creation works. So creation unleashing these aspects, right? Equally is balance. It's flow. It's 0 point energy. It's boundless. I believe that the cycle we get caught in is this hand thing, right? Where we have this point and we're trying to deflect it constantly to fit, to release just limited amounts of compassion, love, aggression, anger, indulgence, just constantly trying to balance these filters that let out this creation, this energy. And that's a losing game. It's a losing game because if you know anything about anything, you know that when you try to contain something and let it out little by little, it comes out with more force. This happens with air, it happens with water, it happens with emotion, and it happens with anything. Patterns repeat. So, this filtering game it's a losing game. Either we're going to lose the filtering process and burst, or we're going to wither away. So for me, in my understanding, the goal is to release all of this energy unbound in all directions equally and in a balanced way that represents the best of who we believe we can be. And therein lies the caveat: is what do we believe? I believe I can be the best version of myself in a bad situation. I don't know what being the best version of myself in a good situation means. It's always been someone else's situation, someone else's job, someone else's family, someone else's relationship somehow. I'm in them, but somehow they're not mine. you know, jumping into other people's existence, other people's situations, other people's demands, other people's judgments, other people's praise, you know, and some of those situations were good. They were not my best situation because none of them were my situation. And so now, stepping into the role of a creator and creating an entire universe from nothing, and nothing is. It's a lie, but for the purposes of civilization, we'll say nothing. And for me, that meant living behind a shrub on the side of a road. Yeah. Now I'm here, which is where nowhere special, nowhere impressive, yet somewhere great, somewhere beautiful. So now stepping into the role of a creator is finding out what is my best in a good situation. What does that mean? Being the best version of myself means by my measures, leaving this world a better place than when I came. That's what that means. How does that happen? What does that mean? Because we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't found it. We haven't thought of it. We haven't created that place, that being, that situation. So what that means for me is to go on a journey to create it. It doesn't mean I have to change the whole world now. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. 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 Doesn't mean I have to change the whole world. We're not. You know. We've moved past this conquer and impose part of history. It just means shining through and showing a different way. You know, showing a different way. Being happy, being whole. And whatever that means for me. And trusting myself. Not fearing myself. I can't love anything that I fear. And like I said, I know my limits. And, well, you know, relative, but I know my character. And that's a huge step. I don't know how many people have that. I don't know how many people don't. But, it's a big thing for me to know. So my character, my substance, my essence. I guess the point is to bring that with me, you know. Just live my life, my little tiny, 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 tiny life. Sometimes I live it loud, very loudly, in my own little ways. And every now and then someone will, you know, someone will say something and I'll point out how something that I think is so trivial and really childish, as, you know, purple hair, for instance, and, you know, they'll crack a wall and they'll tell me, you know, that I inspire them, and that I'm a badass, and, you know, there was a part of me, it's still around, though it's muted, that used to love that. It made me happy. And in a way it does, in a deep way that makes me feel like I'm doing what I was meant to do, which is to just make a difference, really. Just reassure someone that it's okay to not know what's going on, to not be a part of the norm, to not feel the love. um, you know, and now where I am today, and it makes me sad. You know, it makes me sad for the other person first. You know, there's one situation in specific with the purple hair, and you know, I see this beautiful man. Um, Got everything, you know, as far as I'm concerned, everything that I don't. You know, and his family, his life, his job. You know, he'd figured out some things in his life that we spoke about, shared. You know, he's managing, and he had long hair. Nothing weird, nothing crazy. You know, Latin male, long black ponytail. You know, normal. If he'd said he was Native American, you know, I would have looked, you know, it didn't affect anything, you know, but apparently he was bullied by his coworkers and made fun of and everything. And, you know, this man's on the verge of tears telling me how I inspire him. And his wife is with the baby somewhere. And it makes me sad today. It makes me sad because I felt what he felt. I felt it before, and I felt it with him in that moment. I felt it from him. It made me sad to know what he's going through, but it made me more sad to know that he's going through it. Because at what point do we let these things go? Yes, it would be easy for him to let it go and say, fuck you. I am who I am, you know? He's clean, responsible, knowledgeable, good at his, great at his job, caring, soulful. Who cares? At what point do we let these things go? But it also made me sad because I knew where I was. And I was not an inspiration to myself. And it made me sad at that time that this man, that if I looked up to, I say that, I don't really look up to anyone. I look through, I look up. This man that I respect, that for all human purposes that I love, that I would do anything for, within reason, as with anybody else, within reason. Someone who's just as special as anybody else is looking to me as an inspiration. I was so broken, so angry, and sad, and lost, and aware of it, aware of so much and nothing at all. And pardon. I'll figure out editing at some point. But it made me sad, like, what have we created? What have we let go of? What have we stopped doing? Where everything that man said to me was true. Every compliment. It was beautiful, it was sincere, it was loving. It was true for him and it was true of me. And everything I think of that man is true for me and of him. And we're standing before each other, giving and taking of our souls and of our hearts, and neither one is receptive or able to see what the other one is seeing or expressing about the other. I can't see what he sees in me, and he can't see what I see in him. And so here we are, face to face, and on opposite ends of the universe. And it makes me sad, because I zoom out a lot, when I see this bigger picture, and I'm like, well, if someone who is dragging themselves through every second of every day, struggling to find a foothold on his identity, working way below his capacity, living way below his worth. This person has become an inspiration for someone who's doing a lot of things right. Who's fitting the pieces of the puzzle of society correctly where they should go. If this man is looking at me as an inspiration, where are we? What have we done? How did we get here? You know? I guess it makes sense, it fits. I don't look up for inspiration, you know? I don't look to the powerful, the elite. I don't look to those in charge. Lately, I don't really look anywhere. It sounds like I've given up. I haven't given up. What I mean to say is, I just feel connected a little differently lately. I feel like inspiration is not something I necessarily have to look for. Kind of like knowledge, intuitive, right? Of course I'm going to say this, but I've always kind of just needed to know what I need to know when I need to know it. So I don't, certain things, it's kind of why I don't worry about details too much, you know. Give me a rough overview and the pieces will fall into place. And they generally do, so. I'm losing track of where I'm going. So. Maybe any of this made sense to someone somewhere. Makes sense to me.